we'll get moving. If you're just joining us for the first time, Brain Tech Support Live is where we get together every 2 weeks, usually, and we talk about taking care of the things we really want to do in life while having a human brain. A lot of us are humans, and being a human comes with this unique challenge of having some pretty wacky organs along for the ride, such as the spleen, a stomach, also a brain. Joe Panzer, hello, welcome. I find it really useful to recognize that the brain is very much an organ like the stomach, and our brains are digesting the world. They're digesting the world, they're digesting things that we feed into the brain. And just like a stomach, the brain's gonna react to those things in different ways. And sometimes, and even at different times, it's gonna react to the stuff we put into it in different ways. And yeah, sometimes we don't like that. Sometimes it hurts, it makes noises, it gets upset, it's uncomfortable. But we're really good at recognizing that we're not indigestion in our stomach. However, we tend to have a more difficult time recognizing that we're not the indigestion in our heads either. It's just an organ up there trying to digest the world. It doesn't always do a good job of it. And with time, you also learn that there's certain things you put into it, always it's gonna create the same effect. Uncertainty is one of those things the brain really struggles to digest. When there's a lot of uncertainty around us, it's going to start to throw up lots of things trying to get control of that uncertainty. Crime Scene 96. I'm good. How are you doing? Joe Panzer said, I watched the Kelly Renee interview recently. Can't recommend it enough to anyone here who hasn't seen it. Yeah, absolutely. A lot of people, because maybe I think I did that interview with Kelly Renee. It's probably been 2 years now since we did that interview. I know a lot of people on the Mental Fitness Discord server refer back to it frequently. There's a whole bunch of very useful points that Kelly raised there. And Kelly's been doing Q&As on her Instagram channel there recently as well. Really valuable stuff she's been sharing. And she's always sharing really valuable kind of tips and personal stories of her own adventures and how those adventures continue. So absolutely, give her a follow and check out the interview, if you haven't. Oh, Mud369, I appreciate your mom sending her regards. I hope she's doing well. Yo, Crime Scene, I'm glad you're doing better, and you're just trying to stay consistent. Oh, I appreciate being part of the journey. Sonic to Metro, hey, thanks for stopping by. Been practicing ERP for a year and a half. Oh, share any tips you have with everybody that you've learned on your explorations there. My 369. Yeah, your mom says, she also said, does he talk about a specific topic or does he just prattle on? Prattle on. I think prattling is one of those words that is I find hilarious. But also it sounds like prattle, the word sounds exactly like what it's describing. Prattle sounds like that. Yeah, Sonic to Metro. So there's a good specific topic. The not going back to normal. I was just making a little video on that for Instagram Reels the other day because it's such an important point. I think still all the time when people are first starting out on their working on mental health, I think a lot of the times the focus is on wanting to go back to normal. I hear it come up a lot. I still am frequently telling people not to do that. Sick boy, you said what the subconscious has to do with OCD. I don't know. bring out the subconscious and we'll ask it. But absolutely, a Prattle session. Perhaps your mother would not enjoy a Prattle session if we launched into that. There'd be a lot of uncertainty about what we were going to talk about during a Prattle session. Something on uncertainty. This is really important to bring up, and we'll probably prattle on about it more during the live stream today, is the fact that uncertainty is not topic dependent or topic specific. As in, the brain is a big uncertainty detector, and it can spot all sorts of different things that involve, like, have uncertainty in them. The topic really doesn't matter. The brain is going to latch onto them because they are uncertain, and it wants to get control and check and get certainty. It's really useful to see it on that pattern level. That it's not about like, oh, I've got uncertainty about what we're going to talk about, and I've got uncertainty about what we're going to eat, and I've got uncertainty about what's going to happen at work, and uncertainty about relationships, and so on. That they're not different. It really helps to see it at that pattern level of like, oh, that's an uncertainty, and my brain, because it wants to digest the world and bring certainty, it's going to want to get rid of that and control that. But it really doesn't matter what uncertainty it is, which is why the brain can jump around to like different themes or whatever comes up. Rocky said, what is ERP in your terms? Various videos available, but confusing how to apply it. Well, can you give a more specific example? Like maybe, bring up an example of something you'd want to, a compulsion you'd want to cut out with ERP, and I'll explain how I would do it. George Panzer said, today I'm going to work on my motorbike after its winter hibernation. Oh, everybody, this means winter is over. Forget checking with groundhogs. George Panzer is bringing their motorbike out, so winter is done. Oh, but you said it's a big source of compulsions around cleaning it correctly or doing something wrong. Challenging because a bike is actually dangerous. You know what, right there, it's great you see that, right? The brain does recognize the uncertainty, and so how is it gonna get control? Oh, we've gotta get it right. And so what can be really helpful there? With any thing we're stepping into like that we do wanna do well. I find useful to ask, like, how do I do this well? And what do I value giving my time and energy to here? And then practicing that. Giving your time and energy to specific actions you identified in advance so that you're not having to check with the brain and have the brain go, oh, what about this, what about this, what about this, what about this? It's about saying, here's how I get my bike ready well. These are the actions I'm gonna do. Here's what's important to me. When the brain throws up a bunch of other stuff, thanking it, hey brain, I get it. There's an uncertainty here, there's some danger here. You wanna check and control to get certainty. You know what, brain, we're not gonna have certainty. There is gonna be uncertainty about riding our bike. Here's how I'm gonna take care of it well. I'm gonna appreciate that I'm taking care of that bike and I've done what I value. And then we step away. Jisha said, I've attached self-worth to accomplishments, which makes me feel not enough and scared to detach, as maybe without it, I won't accomplish my goals. And then do you have a question about that? Sonic to Metro, here sharing a tip from practicing ERP for, I think you said a year and a half. Sonic says, I guess a tip would be performing ERP as well as stick with a therapist. I learned the hard way when you do ERP on your own. Your OCD can one-up you in ways you don't predict. So Sonic, do you mean that your tip would be to stick with the therapist? egg. You said, is it truly possible to accept having any thought? Some of mine are way too terrible for me to even consider being okay with having them. Yeah, so like, I don't know if you caught it earlier. I was talking about how uncertainty is all the same uncertainty, right? That the topic doesn't matter. And there again, when you say like any thought, the thing is it can really help to see that there just are thoughts, right? There aren't varieties of thoughts, because it's acceptance is just seeing a thing that's there and being like, okay, it's there. Like right now, I can see a whole bunch of different chairs around me. Is it possible to accept any chair? If I just say, okay, well, there are chairs. Like I don't have to see them all as different chairs. They're just chairs and they can be there while we do a thing we want to do. And thoughts are the same. Like they're just thoughts. The problems arise in many ways when we start to attach meaning to thoughts and we start to differentiate. So we start to discriminate between, ooh, this is a real thought. No, that's an OCD thought. I don't need to pay attention to that. Ooh, but that's a thought I really care about, or that's a memory, so that's different. So yeah, it can help to even take a step back from, hey, they're all just thoughts, to it's all just brain stuff. Because the brain can quickly go, oh, well, you're accepting thoughts, but this is a memory. Again, it's just brain stuff though. Like stuff in the head is just stuff in the head. Really seeing it as all the same makes it much easier to practice acceptance, because you're just accepting a thing. You're accepting that chairs exist. We don't have to do anything with chairs. Jisha said, so your question to the earlier point you made is how to not take things personally, how to not interpret meanings out of others' behaviors. So yeah, one of the things that really helped me to look at is what's my goal? Because if I have a goal of, wanting to get people to say something good about me, so like you mentioned, like having that goal of external validation, then it's very difficult not to take things personally. Because if we believe our critics when they say we're right, we kind of have to believe them when they say we're wrong. Because you're building that logic there that, oh, okay, if this person says good things about me, then I am good. Then of course it means that if they say bad things about me, then I'm bad. So I would start to look at the goal there. But what would be a more useful goal for you? Like would you like to celebrate yourself? Would you like to measure success by what you give? What would you like to give to the world? Could it be okay to give that and get no external feedback on it, or no validation of any kind, but just the fact that you gave it was enough? Yeah, there are a lot of other possibilities. So yeah, it can be fun to explore. Because yeah, usually we started off life very focused on getting external feedback. It's not like there's nothing wrong with it. That's in many ways how our schools are set up, right? Like you're gonna earn gold stars, and very early on we start to see, oh, okay, if I work really hard or I burn out on something, I'm gonna get positive feedback. And we're kind of trained on that. But then as we get older, that really doesn't scale to just living our life. Like, yeah, when you're out of school, you're just out in the real world. You can just live your life and do what you want to do. And we really struggle with that quite often because we've only, been checking for external validation for a very long time. But now you get to give that validation to yourself, just for being. Rocky Fighter. So you said, how do you use ERP therapy while driving a car? So I'm not sure. So often, so if you mean like if somebody had a fear of driving, so yeah, ERP is going to be about driving. So pretty classic ERP exercises, like say somebody's had a fear of having a panic attack while driving, so they've stopped driving. Yeah, it's going to involve getting in the car and driving, right? ERP is exposure and response prevention. So the exposure is going to be getting in the car, and the response prevention is going to be not doing all of the compulsions. So if they used to do a whole bunch of compulsions, like checking how they feel, avoiding particular things, trying to control how they feel, being like, I can't have that feeling, they might be doing a whole bunch of compulsions before driving, cutting those out, because yeah, it's not just going to be about like being in the car. I think a lot of the times where people will get mixed up with exposure and response prevention is they'll see it just as exposure. So they'll go, okay, I'm gonna go for a drive, but then they just spend days leading up to the driving doing compulsions in their head, and then while they're in the car still doing tons of compulsions. Do I feel okay? Is this okay? That doesn't feel okay. Or maybe what can I change so I get rid of this feeling? I don't want to have a panic attack. Okay, we're not going to go on the highway. Like doing all of these compulsions, and then they will say like, oh, I tried ERP, it doesn't work, but they haven't actually done any ERP. They were just in a car doing compulsions, which is not the same as being in a car cutting out compulsions, and cutting out compulsions in the lead up to being in the car. So yeah, I would, really simply, if I was to describe ERP, it's about cutting out compulsions. And that includes compulsions inside of our heads just as much as compulsions outside of our heads. Yeah. Oh, Nimra, heard you lost your baby unexpectedly. Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry for you. I'm sorry, yeah, your baby was facing a heart issue. It's really natural when something traumatic happens, something painful happens, that the brain, right, tries to bring certainty and control. And yeah, that can be, like you see it there going on this loop of like, it's about OCD. And it's not, it's so useful to see that the brain is going to have a difficult time with a painful experience. And it's often going to try to get control in unhelpful ways. And so yeah, it's an opportunity for compassion to yourself, for kindness to you, compassion to the brain, like understanding, like its job in many ways is to detect problems, detect uncertainty, detect pain, and try to control them. But there are many pains and uncertainties and traumatic experiences in life that, yeah, we can't control. That really hurt. And so we can understand why they hurt. Yeah, when the brains swing up like, oh, it's because of this, or it's because of that, or could we have done this, or could we have done that? Just being able to give it a hug. Being able to give yourself a hug. And so yeah, it's really painful, but there's not something to fix and solve there. Just giving kindness is enough. Yeah. Kimberly, yeah, I see your question there about how do you reconcile the use of smartphones with the awareness of the oppression of Indigenous people that goes into how it's made. There, yeah, are a lot of things uh, in this world that we interact with that, yeah, come from oppressive systems that can come very directly from exploiting people. At the same time, uh, you know, people are living in a system that they did not invent, and quite often they did not choose to be in. And so finding that way to actually bring awareness to the reality of things happening in the world, recognizing our place in them, and then doing what we can to change them. Things have been, oppressive systems have been, they're not new. This is what I would say. They're not new. And so when we are aware of what's going on to perpetuate those systems, then it's on us in some way, in whatever way we find possible. If that's accessible to us, to take steps to create change and try to make a world that's better for those around us and the planet. Jisha said, well, I was scared of cycling or traffic for ages. Then I went, and whatever happened, all I said was, you'll handle anything. It's okay, trust yourself. Just hold it firmly. And it helped me a lot. And Jisha actually there, yeah, so great example of getting out and doing an ERP exercise, but then also seeing that related to your other questions, having that trust and support for yourself. That, hey, you can go and do things and you'll handle it. It doesn't have to be about, I accomplished this or I did this. It's stepping out in the world and recognizing things will happen. Difficult things will happen. And we'll do what we can to handle them. Oh, Kimberly, thank you for the donation. Ujibaladia said, I don't really know how to manage my OCD. It's like I don't know what to leave and what to pick. I tried the value method, but it's not working. I always end up being more anxious. Really? So yeah, I'm not a fan of managing OCD. The goal is not to reduce anxiety either. So actually, yeah, if you start to do things you value, it's very likely you'll have an increasing anxiety. If your goal is to decrease anxiety, I would say that's like going to the gym with a goal of decreasing sweat. If your goal with physical fitness is to decrease sweat, you are probably not going to move towards your physical fitness goals. And the same with mental fitness. Yeah, if the goal is to decrease anxiety, it's always going to lead to more anxiety. Khan, he said, I'm 7 days smoke free. Oh, you did all the work. He said, I keep getting the thought of why don't I smoke one last pack and then quit? And it makes quitting so hard. Any advice? So that comes up a lot. All sorts of compulsions, when we quit them, the brain loves that. Oh, like just do it one more time. And so something that helped me, because I noticed I would spend a lot of time with compulsions like that, like having this debate in my head, like, well, maybe I will do it, like maybe. And I was kind of leaving it open, like, oh, well, if I have a hard day or something's coming up, maybe it's okay, maybe I'll do that compulsion then. So I was kind of always looking for a reason to do it. And it really helped me to start to just recognize that the compulsion was done. Like it was no longer possible. And it might be fun to explore something like that. Like the brain's asking you to do something that's literally, completely, physically impossible. And so what would that be like? Vadi, you said, are you traveling solo? Yeah, I am. There's other people here, but I don't know any of them. So when you are, do you like to stay in hotels or hostels, and how do you meet new people? So because I travel all the time, I usually stay in like not in hotels or hostels because I'll stay in an Airbnb or I'll rent an apartment or something like that. So I'll stay usually in places. So when it comes to meeting people, I'll do a couple things. So I will sign up for activities. So actually, Airbnb experiences are good for this, even if I've recommended Airbnb experiences to people even when they're not traveling, because so many people struggle to meet new people. I think this is the question comes up a lot on around traveling of how do you meet new people, but I find that it's one of the biggest challenges that adults run into living wherever they are. They could, be living in the same city for 5 years and they're still going to be wondering, how do I meet new people? How do I make friends? So just a really common experience for anybody, especially as people get older. And so, yeah, Airbnb experiences, things like cooking classes, so like actually doing stuff, I find really key. And then, so I'm, fortunate in that, we have kind of our community. And so I used to do workshops. We're going to start doing workshops probably later this year. So sometimes, I actually, meet you wonderful people while I'm on the go. And then, so I usually do that. So what I do, because I think also people put a lot of pressure on themselves to you've got to make new friends. Because it's quite easy to meet people. But if you want to make new friends, that's a kind of a different practice. It's like, how are we nurturing that friendship and so on. So what I do is so each time I'm in a different country, I'm going to make at least one friend that I'm going to communicate with after I leave the country. And so, yeah, also kind of relieving some of the, I don't have to have some kind of big friend group while I'm in that country. That's just not a reasonable thing. So yeah, so that really helps. And then I think another thing that's really important with this, two other things I'll say that are part of this practice. So just being kind of open and friendly with people. So if I'm in the grocery store, making it okay to just kind of be present and be aware, and have a conversation when I'm getting my groceries, with the cashier or something like that. Just being present with people, I find makes a big difference. We're not in our heads, we're not checking for the right person to meet or something like that. I find is really, really helpful. And then, yeah, no, maybe I'll end it there. I'd say that's just kind of a key thing, being open. And that's something we can practice wherever we are, because so often we're up in our heads, judging other people or checking or chasing some kind of thing. And so if we're doing that kind of stuff in our heads, then it's very difficult to feel kind of connected to the people around us or appreciated or appreciating. So yeah, just kind of generally, I guess, the way I would describe it is already seeing people as a friend, even if you don't know them. Lucia, so I was wondering, since I'm going through grief, I notice a constant I'm alone, really alone. What can we say to this little kid inside of us that feels left out? Yeah, sometimes it is just that being able to give it that hug. What would you want to give to a little kid that was sitting there saying oh, I feel left out? So often, yeah, being able to recognize it, say hey, I get it, I understand why that hurts. And asking, yeah, what would that little kid like to do? What would be a step in a different direction that maybe is giving something to somebody else? or creating the opportunity to receive something from somebody else. Joe Penzer, thanks for stopping by. Enjoy bringing the bike out of hibernation. Hayal, thank you so much. Thanks for joining us. It's great to see you here. Oh, Kelly, thank you for dropping on by. Kelly, we had people earlier appreciating the things you share. If you, I don't know, if, Kelly, I mentioned people should go check out your Instagram channel as well. I don't know if I don't think you can put a link in the chat, but if you put your Instagram like username, just like without the ad or something like that in the channel, then people can go follow you on Instagram. Oh, North Scott, thank you so much for the donation. I appreciate the support. Nicole, yeah, enjoy trying out Airbnb experiences if you get the chance. Yeah, because you're with a group of people going to do a thing. And so many people struggle with the kind of social anxiety, the nervousness around meeting new people. But we love doing things. We love meeting new people. Humans are social animals. And so the thing is, the people who are going to sign up for some kind of group experience probably want to go and do something with other people. And so yeah, you'll generally find, the experience will happen and then it'll end, whatever it happens to be, whether it's for a couple hours or a day or something like that. But yeah, you get to have that experience of being with people, celebrating them. It doesn't have to be anything else. So also that it doesn't have to be like, oh, I met my soulmate there, or I really became best friends with whoever. It's like, yeah, I went and I had a good time, and then the time can end, and that's okay. Oh, no, it's good. Oh, I see the comment there. I appreciate it so much. I'm glad you found these tools helpful on your adventures. Thank you for stopping by today. That's followed up by Dave, who is having lunch at a spa. Dave, I appreciate you allowing us to join you at your spa lunch. May we all bring spa lunch energy into our day today. Erica, I really struggle when I make plans and then something happens, like an illness, someone dying, something major breaking that needs my immediate attention. It makes me not want to even try to make plans or do what I value. If I'm only going to get derailed or have to drop them when another crisis inevitably comes along. How do we deal with the why bother with any of it at all? So what you're running into is something I experienced a lot. I think this comes up often for people, even if it's just on a day-to-day experience. Like I saw in the past, if I had something scheduled in, say I was going to go see a friend or something. So it's like, okay, I can't stay home. I'm gonna go, see a friend. We're gonna go enjoy doing something. I'm gonna, this is something I value. Then say, something happened. The friend, had to cancel. Quite often back in the day, my brain would just go, oh, see, everything's disrupted. Let's just go do a bunch of OCD compulsions, which is, hilariously useless. The brain is. It really helped to see though that, I need to learn how to step into disruption, and also see that me picking a direction is something I've got to do lightly. So yeah, okay, right now, here is a thing I value going to do, and I could lose that. And I'm gonna step into that and pick another direction that takes me somewhere I value. So part of this was taking a step back from the thing. That it was never about the specific thing I was gonna do. That was just, that thing, that plan was simply an expression of what I value doing. And so if the context changes, then I can pick a new action aligned with my value. And so this is one of the reasons I'll often say values are about looking at the context in which we find ourselves, right? Given the context in which I find myself, what do I value doing? And so when the plan gets disrupted, it's just a change in the context. And so we look at that and then we take another step. And so, yes, we don't have to get attached to the thing. The thing was only ever an expression. And yeah, we pick a direction in the forest, and if it takes us to a swamp, it doesn't mean the direction was wrong. We could say, oh, okay, like I didn't realize there was a swamp here. Okay, so now I'm gonna pick a different way to continue in that direction I wanna go. Oh, Dave, who is at the spa having lunch, is playing video games as well. We used to stream some video games and get together as a community on Twitch. Now that I'm traveling, I don't really have a good setup for video games, so I don't right now. But games are really fun. Yes, it's true. I don't speak Turkish, but we do have several community members joining us today from Turkey. Yeah. No, I cannot read it, but there is a copy of my book in Turkish, which I have. I cannot read it, but yeah, it's been so great that to connect with so many, right? So many of us spread out in different parts of the world, right? Even speaking different languages, speaking many languages, and yet the brain is really not that different, right? This human brain of ours is so fascinating in how consistent it can be in any language, in any part of the world. Hong Kong, thank you so much. I really appreciate the donation and the support and the little animated, I think it's a pear. Comes up a lot. I think it's a pear. The animated pear, I appreciate it. Denizen of Light, yeah, you made it to the stream in time. I hope, are you having a good morning? One of the things that I think everybody can use as a skill in the week ahead, and we've talked about this before, but we haven't talked about it today, so I'll just remind everybody, is letting things be easy. That in so many ways, when we get caught up in compulsions, we get caught up in obsessing and reacting to things in our heads, we're just doing all of this extra work, right? Because we could just be living our lives, doing the things we want to do, but the brain's always going, oh, like, we've got to chase this uncertainty. What about this uncertainty? We've got to be time traveling. We've got to be fixing this and controlling this. And then because we are like superheroes with superpowers, we just try and fix it all, right? We're constantly time traveling through our past, through a million different futures, just trying to fix and control everything. Because we can try, and then we do spend a lot of time on that. But we don't have to do all of that unpaid overtime work. It's so exhausting. So it really helps to just start to notice the brain throwing that stuff up, right? Again, it's going after uncertainty. There's this uncertainty, we've got to fix it. You're like, yeah, brain, I see that. I know you want to fix that, but we don't have to. Bobby. Oh, so Bobby, this is related to what we were just talking about. Oh, I'm glad you appreciated the book. He said, do you have any advice for making difficult decisions without compulsively ruminating and overanalyzing to the point of paralysis? Yeah. So right away from the start, anytime you have a decision to make, decide how you'll decide. So before you start trying to figure it out. So a simple way to do it is when you have a decision, pick 3 values that are going to decide for you. And you pick one out of the 3, which is going to be the tiebreaker. So you say, okay, there's 3 things that I'm going to look at, 3 things that are important to me here, and 1 thing that's most important. And then you set a time limit. So you say, okay, I'm going to explore these options, but we're going to decide at the end of these 30 minutes. And the brain won't be satisfied. It's going to be like, well, but we could think of more things, or we could do more research, and et cetera. That's where you say, yeah, of course I could. I could spend weeks thinking about this. I could spend years trying to decide on where I want to take my life. You could spend decades and not go anywhere. Or you can pick a direction and explore. And so, yeah, we do want to take some time to decide, okay, which direction am I going to pick? But we've got to have that focus on picking. So we're going to take action. So yeah, what are 3 things that are important to you? What's the most important thing? Set a time limit, explore the options, and then at the end of the time limit, pick the option that scored the best. And then you explore it. And yeah, you might find other information. It might not turn out to be the best option. That's okay. You're going to try things, you're going to explore, and then you're going to pick more directions. And you'll explore those too. Denizen of Light, thank you so much for the donation. Hey, I really appreciate you dropping by this morning. I'm glad you made it. Thank you. Oh, Lloyd27. I'll read it out so everybody in the community. You said, it's great to have you in this community. Even the times I do not struggle with OCD, whenever I happen to see your channel, it makes me smile. Oh, I really appreciate that. Oh, thank you. That message makes me smile. But yeah, thank you for being part of the community. Yeah, really, yeah, it doesn't have to be about struggling with something or dealing with OCD. And yeah, sometimes in our lives we'll run into some challenges, but this is really about living our lives, right? Doing those things we actually want to be doing out there. Yeah, we don't have to keep the mental illness diagnoses around. Yeah, Mud. So it's so hard to let things be easy when your brain is a brain like my brain. Yeah, and so, Mud, how does your brain get you to listen to it? Because what if you didn't have to listen to whatever your brain threw up? Would that be easier? Bizlarry Fresh said, how do we figure out what are our values? And can asking it to ourselves again and again be a compulsion? Yeah, absolutely. So one thing you could consider is they don't have to be like your values. So yeah, there are exercises you can do to explore things that you care about. There is a values course on the Toolkit website with a bunch of exercises that you can do just to explore values. But also, they are things you explore. They are things that will change in your lifetime. Absolutely. They are just picking directions for how you want to explore the wilderness of life right now. But as you explore the wilderness, you're going to see new things, you're going to learn new things, and you'll want to change directions. And that's okay. It's not about saying like, which compass directions are my compass directions. Like they're carved on your spleen and you've got to like rip yourself open and find my values. No, it's much more like finding a recipe to make cookies on the internet. Yeah, you go out, you say like, hey, I think I'd like chocolate chip and peanut butter cookies. So what's a good recipe for chocolate chip and peanut butter cookies? And then you explore that. And you see, okay, did that make cookies that I like? Okay, it did. All right, maybe I'll use that recipe again. Well, maybe the recipe comes out and you're like, oh, actually, I didn't like that. Okay, yeah, then you learn something new. And you say, okay, well, maybe you'd like brownies instead. And then immediately you go and make a batch of brownies. And then you try those. Yeah. Oh, Galia, I'm so glad you asked this question. I have a story from today for this question. It said, what helps with focus? I seem to drift away almost all the time as I'm almost fixating on my thoughts. I got into a car crash because of that last week. So one, I hope you're okay after the car crash. Today, this happened twice. I am in a hotel today, and so I was riding the elevator, and how'd it go? The first time I was riding the elevator, so I noticed something interesting. So the first time I was riding the elevator, it stopped at a floor, and there was this person standing kind of in front of the elevators on their phone. And then the doors started to close. So it kind of looked like, oh, maybe they were waiting for somebody else. But no, they wanted to get on the elevator, but they were just so in their phone, they didn't notice the doors had opened. So then they rushed in the elevator and they kind of ran into somebody, and then immediately got back on their phone. And then later, I went out into the city, I came back. When I was going up the elevator that time, what happened that time? The person, this time they got on the elevator. So different person, but also on their phone. They got on the elevator. They got on their phone on the elevator. And then when the elevator got to their floor, they were so engrossed in their phone that they didn't realize it was their floor. And so then there were people waiting to get on the elevator, so they started to get on, and so then the person realized they were where they needed to be, so then they like charged into those people. Again, they probably hopped right on their phone as soon as they got off. And so it's useful to look at how are the ways throughout our lives that we might be practicing mindlessness and practicing distraction. It's a practice. Like, we cannot expect to have the capacity to focus if it's not something we consistently practice throughout life, particularly if we're often practicing the opposite. So if we've often, so you can think of those people who were on their phones on the elevator. It seemed like that was a pretty consistent practice for them. Like, oh, I'm not doing anything right now, I should be on my phone. But it's also useful to recognize that we can do that even without a phone. Because if we're constantly in our head, oh, I'm not doing anything right now, I'm gonna fix that problem. Or I'm gonna ruminate through a bunch of things in my head. We can scroll with a phone or we can scroll with a brain. Doesn't matter. The issue is the scrolling. And so if we're accustomed to always scrolling in our heads, then of course the brain's going to want to do it when we're driving. So it's really useful to look at throughout our lives, how do we not practice mindlessness? Because we'll get good at it. And I think even, actually, if Kelly Renee's still here, I think Kelly, I can't remember if it was yesterday or it was today. I think Kelly just shared something on this topic on her Instagram channel too. The other thing I noticed from those elevator experiences and watching the people, so I guess two things. So one thing I noticed, it never occurs to me to take out my phone anymore while doing something like waiting for the elevator and then riding the elevator. And one of the reasons I'm so appreciative of that is because the stress it was creating for those people, right? It's really stressful to be, so engrossed in solving a problem on your phone, and then I almost missed my elevator, right? And then when those guys ran into people, right? We're so often worried about like, are other people judging me, or we're judging other people? Because I think the one time the guy felt like he was angry that the people started to get on the elevator, like they were getting in his way, but like they were probably also judging him because he didn't get off when the elevator opened. And so the amount of stress that mindlessness was creating, and just think about when I'm thinking back to like doing compulsions all the time, a lot of the struggle is just how exhausting it is because it's creating so much stress, right? So many things we're not catching until the last moment. So then we feel like we're in this paranoid state all of the time because there are these things we're not paying attention to, and then they get really stressful. Oh, Kelly, yeah, good luck to your oldest choosing a university. Yeah, it is tough, but finding that thing like, hey, here's the thing that's gonna be most important. Here's a couple things that are really important to me, and then we choose, right? Yeah, knowing like your oldest you'll make it work. You'll all make it work together. Yeah, I hope they have a lot of fun with you. It's all too easy. You say, what kind of OCD did you suffer from, Mark? There is nobody has ever mentioned. Actually, I would say there's in all of the years of doing this, there's only one symptom or one compulsion. Yeah, I'll say it like that. There's only one or obsession. It's probably yeah. There's only one because all the compulsions are the same. There's only one obsession that somebody has mentioned that I had not experienced. The idea that people talk about kinds of OCD, I was so when I first started joining OCD communities, that really threw me for a loop because like a theme or a kind or a type like that didn't make any sense to me because I had all of them. Like I didn't understand that idea that like there are kinds. But absolutely, we should all just take the stairs, not on our phones. Oh, Erica, your cat, your cat is sick. I hope your cat is doing better. Yeah, the brain carries. Yeah, it's tough. Yeah, illness and death and these things are difficult. It just wants to solve them. Dave said, "Do people think regular book reading would help with scrolling?" Uh, like, there's all sorts of things. Like just starting to find those things where you are gonna say, "Hey, we're gonna do one thing," and just be there. And there's so many different things. Yeah, but yeah, reading could be one of them. Uh, a lot of the times people over the years of struggling with compulsions may have lost a reading practice, like where they really used to really enjoy reading fiction. It's an exercise I've often worked on with coaching clients, where we read fiction again, like just learning how to read a novel again, and give a chunk of time to novel reading, like reading fiction, because it's also they may have gotten into like, oh, if I am gonna read, I've got to read a mental health book and I've got to fix things, and it's so wonderful to be able to make space for just enjoying, like fiction, like creativity and narrative. But then also, yeah, it's difficult at first because maybe we've been like all over the place for a long time, and so learning how to be with it, and also like not do a bunch of like compulsions, like reread things or anything like that. Yeah, it's a fun practice. Erica, I appreciate your husband calling me an overachiever. I feel like I only because I spend so much time telling people to let things be easy and be lazy. So, but I hope to overachieve at telling people to be lazy. Dave, your girlfriend is telling you to get off the phone. It's often a great message. Yeah. Oh yeah, Mud, thanks for reminding me. Yeah, Erica, your cat's name is Pigeon, right? Oh, that's why we have pigeon on the, like we have a pigeon icon emoji on the server. King Khan said, I remind you of your English teacher from school. Oh, I appreciate it. Like, I was an English teacher for a while. Was I your English teacher? It's all too easy. Yeah, the brain will often right latch onto things that are scary. It can really help to see it's not about the taboo topics. It's actually about the compulsions. So it really helped me to see it's because the brain it's just brain stuff, but it's the us like judging it, going like, oh, it shouldn't be there. I've got to fix it. I've got to control it. That just encourages the brain to throw up more of it. Kelly, oh, this is a great. I didn't notice this in your message before, Kelly, but I guess, did you say problem living skills in your message before? Because, yeah, absolutely. Although brains maybe do have problem living skills, absolutely. Yeah. And then just sending that well wishes to Erica's cat. I hope your kitty is well soon and you continue to care for yourself. Yeah. Brains do love problems and love to solve them. Oh, Nicole said, I just had an insight I'd like to share about the values and mindlessness topic. I'm seeing it so useful to equally hold lightly the ever-changing context of others to let ourselves navigate living. It's, yeah, thanks for sharing that, Nicole. It's really helpful to bring compassion and understanding that yeah, other people we interact with are also interacting with their uncertainties and their anxieties and things they may want to control, and everybody's going to be at different kind of positions when it comes to awareness of that. Yeah, and they may not be aware of what's going on. They may not be ready to touch some of those difficult feelings that you are exploring and working on. And so it is always helpful for us to notice that, and even notice how something that comes up a lot is, if we're making changes, that creates uncertainty for other people. And their reaction is going to be to try to get some control and certainty about that and probably push things back to the way they used to be, because maybe they're not ready for things to move forward, or things moving forward creates a lot of uncertainty for them. So yeah, being aware of the context of other people and how they're interacting with uncertainty is always so useful. Yeah, and then Nicole, you said down below, yeah, if we can't let others explore their context, how do we do that for ourselves? Yeah, Erica, a little cat emoji. It's all too easy. Yeah, I said, are you completely free from OCD? Yes. Yeah, I mean, it's been years. But the thing, I'll say it's all too easy. You can see, like, usually, you've gone for kind of two popular reassurance questions. One, what type of OCD did you have? And two, are you free from it? And yeah, it can help to see that's, like, the brain just loves that, like, checking, right? Thinking, oh, because, like, because it's just trying to play tricks on you. Because it said, oh, like if I had said I only had OCD about chairs, then you go, oh, he only had OCD about chairs. Well, mine's more significant. So if he got over OCD about chairs, well, that doesn't mean anything for me. Oh no. And so that's always the why the brain actually chases reassurance, because it's just actually looking for something to obsess about even more. Yeah, so earlier when I mentioned it's actually about going after the compulsions, so it's starting to see that it's the compulsions to check for certainty that fuels obsessions about taboo topics, because the brain's just throwing it up like, oh, what if you were this kind of person? Go check for certainty. Oh, what if you did this bad thing in the past? Go check for certainty. And so we have to cut out that, or see it as this pattern. And so yeah, there's going to be checking for certainty around these taboo topics, but that's not the only place where it happens. There's also the checking for certainty around kind of things that seem very normal and necessary. And that's where the brain learns it. Because if we're like, oh, well, it'd be good for me to get certainty about if I can recover, then the brain goes, well, wouldn't it also be good to get certainty if you're a serial killer? And to the brain, it's just as logical. And so that's why we've got to go after the pattern. Kayla, you said, I have obsessive thoughts and do compulsions in my dreams, and dreams is capitalized and has an exclamation mark. I suppose this will likely ease up as I continue to work on my actions during the day. Oh, what do I think? Oh, I try not to think disastrous. It's what I'll say on the topic of compulsion, it's very common to check for reassurance about getting rid of experiences that happen in dreams and while we're asleep. And it really helped me to recognize that because the brain is just chasing compulsions, it's going to throw up any experience that we're going to judge as weird or wrong, because then we'll go and we'll check on it. Or we'll be like, is it going away? Or if it's there, we're like, oh, it's there. What's this mean? I've got to fix it. But that's all the brain is trying to do. It'll create whatever uncomfortable experience, whatever unwanted experience gets us to go and check for certainty and try to control it. It's wild like that. I was just getting rid of a bug, but I had to like wave in front of the camera. Oh, okay. King Kong, I was not your English teacher. How do you remain so calm and happy? Oh, well, why? What would be what's the alternative? Mad Salama. He said, is medication needed forever if therapy does not work anymore? So I'd have a lot of questions about that. So I'd approach therapy, so like even just like the therapy, I'll say it this way, like I wouldn't expect therapy to work, right? You're going to therapy to learn skills that you practice. So yeah, if you were like whatever you saw as therapy working, like if that was like, oh, I was experiencing less anxiety, I would say that's not the point of therapy. Therapy is about learning skills that you're going to have with you for the rest of your life. So it's also like therapy doesn't like work. It would be like saying cooking classes don't work anymore. Well, like you're going to the cooking class to learn cooking skills, which you then apply in your cooking. So I would look at it that way. But then, yeah, just from like an evidence-based perspective, you'll find often there's not a lot of studies that show like using medication long term. Yeah, you'll get diminishing returns, and they're not usually like even if you look in medical guidelines in wherever you happen to be, there's a pretty high chance they'll talk about like they'll have some kind of suggested endpoints because there's not a ton of like the studies done on a lot of psych medications are about using them for short periods of time. Bagel, what's up? Thank you for joining us. It's good to see you here. I hope the bagels are wonderful this weekend. Yeah, and bagel, great question. So Mad Salama there. What would you like to build on with your short visit to this wet space rock? Bagel, that's a great way to describe it. Sonic, you said, a feeling in my head that I got from thoughts about hair loss has decreased. Does that mean my OCD is gone? But it does show a progress in treatment. So Sonic, I find it useful to see it's not about the presence or absence of thoughts and feelings. It really helps to put something at the center that we want to grow. Right? Because the brain could throw up any kind of thought. It could throw up all sorts of thoughts about hair loss in the future. Like, why would that be a problem? Right? The brain could throw up thoughts about losing chairs. All right, like it can do that. That doesn't have to mean anything about where we are in our life. So it's really important to know how you're going to measure progress, completely separate from anything the brain does. It's all too easy. So are there any books you recommend to help me with my battle of OCD? So I have a book. So it's called You Are Not a Rock, is the US version, or The Mind Workout is the UK version, which you can get in some countries where you can't get the American version. And the reason I mentioned that is because it talks about walking off the battlefield, that actually going to battle with OCD requires it. Right? Because I think if your goal is to defeat an enemy, you need an enemy. So You Are Not a Rock actually talks about like ditching that stuff. So like I was just talking about with progress, it's about identifying a goal that's not about fixing a problem. If your goal is to fix a problem, then the problem is necessary. But you want to leave it behind, so that it doesn't make sense to make the problem necessary. So the goal doesn't need to include the problem. So there's that. And then for other books, I recommend people get a book on what they actually want to be doing in life. So yeah, if there's something you'd really like to explore in life, I'd get a book on that. Because yeah, getting over OCD, getting over any kind of mental illness diagnosis, if that's what you want to do, it's going to be about growing those things you really want to do in life. So like Bagel mentioned above, that question of what would you like to build on your short visit to this wet space rock? I'd find a book about that. Maybe it'll be titled Things to Do on a Wet Space Rock. Upside down clock. So your question is, can OCD thoughts make you do stuff? So this is a classic reassurance question. It can really help to see that cutting out compulsions like this is how we can leave OCD behind. So yeah, I'm not going to answer that question because it would not be helpful to you. I'm gonna have a drink though. I got this great new bottle. So guys, you gotta check. I was actually really excited to get this. So this is, I'll explain what this is because this is kind of great. This is one of the reasons I'm in the city this week. So this, I know this looks just like a water bottle, but this is to replace. So when I travel, so for the past year, I've had what's called a life straw because I don't want to be buying bottled water all the time. A lot of places, and this hotel is the same. People say like you shouldn't drink the water here, or you should boil it. But then the hotels, so they put in the rooms just tons and tons and tons of plastic water bottles. A lot of hotels, or actually I shouldn't say a lot, a few hotels I've been to in the world, and I really appreciate this, and now we'll do like refillable glass bottles in rooms, and they'll just have water filter stations in places around the hotel. That is great. It's not always the case though. So this is actually a massive, let's see if I can get it around here. This is a water filter. It's called a Grail, and it's quite hard to lift up because there's liquid in it. Yeah, you can see it in there. And it is a really powerful water filter which you can basically fill up anywhere in the world and drink the water. And so the filters, what's great about this one is, and actually I'm really thirsty, so I'll take a drink in a second, but the benefit of this one over the Life Straw is that the Life Straw is a straw. So the filter's in the top, in the cap. But what I found was difficult about that, if like you're out hiking or something and somebody else needs water, you can give them your life straw, but they've got to suck on your life straw. Whereas with this one, you push it down. I don't know if it'll let me now. It gets a problem is that it gets air in it from me just lifting it up there, and the air doesn't go through the filter that well as water does. But the benefit here is that I can filter the water and then I can pour it out for somebody else. So that's why I really wanted to get this one. That's about as far as it'll go. See if I can. I probably just have to open the cap. And so it's great because this just saves an incredible amount of plastic bottles. Because being able to go in any place, because my apartment is the same. When I got into the Airbnb, they were like, yeah, you can't drink the tap water, but there's no, then all people do is buy bottled plastic water and just create a gajillion tons of bottles, which is not that good for our wet space rock. So their product placement brought to you by water and Grail. So I think Grail is actually an American company. So it's easy, I believe. So I think if you're in the U.S., it's easier to get one of these. Oh, and bagel. Speaking of branding, on brand with eating bagels right now. Kevin said, how does one get over the fear of a heart attack? I sometimes feel lightheaded, tight chest, etc. I got checked a year ago and my heart is healthy. I believe I'm creating symptoms. Yeah, it's really popular. We have a moderator on the mental fitness Discord server who has shared a bunch of the experiences they had with particularly like going to get tests and all of the compulsions they used to do around their heart. And so if you want a link to the mental fitness Discord server, send me a message if you post about that question on there. And there's other people who would have stuff to share as well. It's going to be about knowing the brain is going to bring up stuff that it's going to latch onto, and actually the interview with Kelly Renee. If you go on my channel, search Kelly Renee, there's an interview where Kelly also talks about the fear of dying, and a question she got asked when she was doing therapy. I'll leave it at that. Yeah, you can check out the interview. What you're running into is quite common, and it's gonna feel wild on this journey. We're always gonna run up against death. And moving forward is going to involve having a different relationship with death. Ads, thank you so much. I'm glad you like the mind workout. I appreciate it. Upside down kick. You said, my OCD thoughts are mainly doing stuff rather than what if statements. How would I go about treating it? Is it that I let the thoughts keep telling me to act out stuff while not doing it? I'd have a bunch of questions about that. That differentiation you're making there between like saying it's not a what if thing, but it's the brain telling you to do stuff. What you're experiencing, because you asked above, can OCD thoughts make you do things? You may not be experiencing that as a what if, but you're asking questions that reflect that uncertainty. There's going to be uncertainty there. Doesn't need to get categorized in any special way. What do you want to create and spend your time on instead of chasing that certainty? Jisha, yes, when you reject people based on their behaviors or misaligned opinions after a date, how to know if it's chasing safety and control or a right thing to do based on values, like being honest, but I question, yeah, we may not know. Right? Yeah, like we just make choices and take steps in the wilderness. And we see, yeah, it's one of those things where if we've noticed, oh, I go on a lot of dates, but oh, I reject everybody, then it might be that the brain is, just like it can do with like a feeling of contamination, right? Where the brain will always go, oh, you're dirty. You got to wash again. You got to wash again. Oh, you're dirty. Or it'll feel like, oh, that's dirty, throw it out. Oh, that's dirty, throw it out. Oh, that's wrong, get rid of it. And then if you notice that keeps happening, it's usually go, wait a second. I wanna spend time with people, but my brain tells me everybody's wrong. What if my brain is the one that's not helpful here? But yeah, we just discover by exploring, right? But so, oh, you would the yeah. Do you somebody say? Do you find it fatiguing that we talk about the same things again and again on here, or yeah? Would it just be? Would you find it fatiguing to do that? Because yeah, do you find at work do you have to do that sometimes? Oh, Kevin, thank you so much for the donation, eh? Oh, for a cup of coffee, Starbucks is expensive. Starbucks is expensive where I am right now. I saw somebody just describe it that way. So I appreciate it, but I'll spend it on some food. I will nourish myself with food. Thank you, and I'll probably get coffee with it. Oh, bagel, bagel, bagel. They said, I recently picked up a book about indigenous Pacific Northwest art history. See, that's a great example of a book, right? You're interested in art, you create art, you get to explore more around art and the places where we navigate. Enjoy that. King Kong. Oh yes, am I dating or not? I'm not going on any dates today, but I was about to say it's possible. No, it's not. It's not possible today. But I don't have any kind of rule against dating. Right now we're doing this. I don't think I'll have a date later today, but at some point in my life, again, maybe. I mean, the world may end next week, but there could be dates again. Nicole, yes, exactly. This is for yeah, like this is for hiking, like kind of, but has the added benefit of then being just like a useful water filter all the time. But yeah, big benefit, of course. You're passing a mountain stream in the Andes. You can fill this up. You can drink from it, and yeah, there's no problem with that. Yeah, so upside down. So you gave an example here. Um, so yeah, you said I'd be sitting in my room studying, for example, and then suddenly I get a thought and I stare at my own parts, I assume you mean private parts, and it gets stuck. And now I can't focus on my studying because the thought keeps telling me to do it and do it. How would I go about that? Yeah, so it could really help to see. Like, so that's an example of a compulsion. You can study though. So you're saying, oh, I can't study. Do you mean that if you give your attention to studying, it feels uncomfortable or it feels like the brain is shouting? That's normal. Like that's what it's gonna do when you don't do the compulsion. And so yeah, it's really common. Like I had lots of compulsions around looking at things. It's fun to start playing around with the brain being like, you gotta look here. And then we choose to look somewhere else. So yeah, it's gonna be, yeah, pretty standard stuff. It can really help when you sit down to study to like want to have the brain shout about something. It's no different than you sitting at a table with a whole bunch of people around you, and you're like, I'm gonna study, and there's somebody at the table beside you going, look over there, look over there. Oh man, you gotta look at this. And you're like, hey, that's nice, but I don't have time for that. And then choosing to look at something on the page. And it'll feel wild. So bagel. So you'd rather do the life straw. Oh, you might take a hike today. Enjoy. So I took the life straw on my hikes earlier in the year, right? Early in the year, I was doing a bunch of hikes, and I took the life straw. So now I got the grail. So we'll see. I figure I'll compare them. Like I used the life straw until it was exhausted, and then I gave the thermos to a family member. So yeah, we'll use the grail. We'll use the grail until the grail doesn't work anymore, and we'll see how that goes. Oh, and the other thing, so actually there is a titanium version of this, which I didn't get. This is not titanium, that you can actually use when you're hiking as a pot, right? So you can put the water in, filter it, and then stick it in the fire. You must have to take the filter out at that point. Yeah, I would think so. Yeah, it would probably melt the filter. But yeah, you clean the water, take the filter out, and then, yeah, put your soup in it and use it like a pot. Amazing. It's all too easy. He said, my mind tells me that having OCD makes you weak mentally. That hurts my ego. How do I fix that? Well, yeah, getting rid of the ego. I mean, yeah, if it's broken, that's fine. Just recycle it. I find it useful, and I have a video on this you can check out on YouTube called The Weakness of Recovery. So I find it useful to see that recovery from mental illness and taking care of our mental health, it's more useful to be weak, let things be easy, to be lazy. That so much of the struggle is actually us trying to be like hard and strong and fight, right? Again, with the battle. We're gonna go to battle. And yeah, that's not so useful. But yeah, maybe you could take the life straw to Morocco. Yeah, before you die. Yeah. Bagel. Yeah, those are great emojis. SW said, I'm on a waiting list for CBT, psychotherapy services, but it's a 9 to 12 month waiting list. Oh, I hope they have nice chairs in that waiting list. I have obsessive fear of losing control and doing something bad. Obsessively fear anything related to possibly causing loss of control. My current therapist thinks I need a meds change as I've been on my current meds for 21 years. A meds change seems terrifying, but so does staying like this. It's really common to fear losing control. It's the reason I talk about mental health being the practice of being ourselves. Many fears, and there's a whole bunch of them. You start to bring them up there around losing control. That we don't want to lose control and do something bad, but that's because, yeah, we want to be ourselves. We want to live our lives. The thing is, when we put that fear in charge, we end up putting life on hold. We don't live our lives, which just further enforces the fear that something in our brain is going to take control of us. It's going to interfere with our life. So the thing I like to look at there is practicing living our lives, giving our time and energy to being ourselves, doing the things that matter to us, and practicing living. Because that is the fear. The fear is about us not living our lives. So I look at it that way, not going after the fear, but instead going after what we want to create and grow in our lives. Zortox Craft. First of all, thank you for the donation. I appreciate that. Thank you for stopping by with having a cool name. And then, yeah, I appreciate the generous support. And then you asked a question here. You said, have you ever heard of OCD obsessions over religion? General response is fine. I don't want to trigger anyone. Oh, yeah, actually, absolutely. One of the very first recorded mentions of what we now know as OCD was about a person, and I'm going to forget what book it's in. It's in some random medieval book about a guy who struggled with what we would see as just classic religious themed OCD. It's called scrupulosity. And would have to, I think it was that he would be in church and he would have to say certain prayers out loud, and then he would get them wrong, and then he would have to repeat them, and he was always afraid of being punished by God. A lot of religious themed fears go back to that fear of losing control that we were just talking about. They often go along, because often if we dig into it, it's a fear of losing, a more powerful being doing something to us, something more powerful controlling our lives, or losing control over eternity. So thinking like, oh, I've got to do these things to control God, to control eternity. And so, yeah, it's often also about the fear of losing control. And Regosini, yeah, thank you also for the really generous donation. I really appreciate it. Thanks for the support. You asked the question here as well. Yeah. Said, your advice to see thoughts as clouds in the sky helped me tremendously to fight my harm OCD. Oh, thank you. I'm glad it helped. Congratulations, on putting things into practice and exploring that, right? Those harm fears are intense. But when we start to see oh, this is just, it's not a nice looking cloud, but it is just a random cloud in the sky of my brain, we can get back to living our lives, right? And caring for the things we want to care for. So yeah, thank you. I really appreciate it. Surabjot, I hope you're doing well as well. Thanks for stopping by. Mud. Yeah, I said I find many things fatiguing, including having the same conversations over and over at work a lot, and family members seem to need repetition too. I get exhausted by it. Yeah, one of the things maybe to look at there is, because that could be different. I'm choosing to be here, right? And I want to be here, and I want to interact with our community, and I want to explore these things. In many ways, it's like going to the gym. Today I went to the gym. I didn't do any new exercises at the gym. Everything I did at the gym, I've done before. And I enjoyed that. I wanted to go and practice those things I've done before. And seeing that, that's part of me being me. I enjoy that I can choose to go and take my body there and move in a way I want to, even if it's something I've done before. But yeah, if we're being put in a position where we're kind of forced to repeat things, then yeah, often we don't like it, right? It's not as enjoyable. So what are things you would like to repeat for you that you'd actually choose to do? So I did see, so one thing, drinking out of this is kind of awkward when you're on a live stream because of all of the bits are not in the right spots. But this is probably not a use case they thought about when they were designing it. But because the filter's in the bottom, I could have just gotten a glass. There's champagne flutes over there, and I could have poured out my water into the glass. So this is really on me. Adjourn said, after a traumatic experience, I've become very afraid that I smell bad, that I have an extreme scent of poop, that everyone is judging me in secret. Do you have any advice? Yeah, Adrian, you probably missed it earlier, near the start of the stream. We were talking about, traumatic experiences. and how after a traumatic experience or while a traumatic experience is happening, yeah, it hurts and it's painful. And one of the ways the brain tries to help us is by trying to get certainty and get control. And so it's very common that what you're experiencing will happen after a traumatic event. So I sometimes describe it almost like an immune reaction. Like the brain goes, oh, that was an emotionally scarring experience. Okay, we've got to kind of put some scar tissue in place. We're going to make sure that doesn't move in the wrong way again. But then that scar tissue becomes limiting, just like real scar tissue in a joint. And so, yeah, part of it's noticing that with compassion. We can start to say, okay, brain, I understand why you're doing this. That was a difficult experience. And there were things we didn't like there. But we don't have to keep trying to control this. We don't have to keep reacting to it. So it is, another way I'll often describe the experience now of moving forward. It's like you're gonna be babysitting a kid who had an experience of falling out of a roller coaster. Now you're going to teach that kid how to ride roller coasters again. And so yeah, the kid's gonna be like, no, like we can't do it. This is bad. We've got to get some control. We've got to check on things. Can you tell them like, hey, I understand why you want to do that. Like, I know you fell out of the roller coaster before, and it was a bad experience. Okay. Now we're going to explore how to keep living our lives. And yeah, it's going to involve doing things and going to places that are going to remind you of that experience you had. And I know why it hurt. And I'm here for you. And I'm going to show you that we can do these things and they can be scary. And then you take the kid on a roller coaster. Oh, Mud, that's a good question. Yes, is the Grail heavy? I would say it's heavy. Yeah, just holding this right now, I'm not sure the exact weight. It is kind of heavy though. I don't know if I should give away this secret, but I'll mention it. Because I only have 2 bags, right? So yeah, adding something heavy, not something I like to do. But one, my bags are pretty light. My kind of carry-on bag, but also, as far as I know in the world, there's no airline, no major airline. Some of the small ones do it. If you hop in a plane that has to jump over a mountain or something, they'll measure your bags because every kilogram, every gram counts then. But airlines don't measure your personal item, and so my personal item it's a backpack, ends up being heavier than my carry-on, like the bag that would be seen as the carry-on. So this will go in the water bottle holder on the side. So if it increases the weight, my back won't like it, but it won't be, it won't get me kicked off anything, hopefully. Upside down kick. You said, last question. If by doing it where I continue doing what I was doing, is that considering ignoring a thought to stare, or is that considered thought replacement, which is considered avoidment? No, so yeah, so one thing I'll say upside down kick, so there are other compulsions going on here than the one you're mentioning. So even what you're describing right there, really common way the brain will get people into compulsions, but even the fact that you know all those terms suggests you're doing a lot of checking things on the internet. No, the distraction is always the thought. Living your life is not a distraction, ever. You are not avoiding a thought if you live your life. Also, it's impossible to, you've already experienced the thought. Avoiding life is always going to be the compulsion. Yeah, you don't have to go and fix anything. And so the brain will often use that as a way to hook you. It's think of it like a person who's shouting on the street and you want to go to the grocery store. And so the person on the street's going to shout things at you like, you're an alligator. And you're going to say, well, I want to go to the grocery store, I'm going to keep on walking. And then the brain, the guy shouting on the street, is going to say, well, if you're ignoring the fact that you're an alligator, then it must be true. Because if it wasn't true, you would come back here and tell me that I'm wrong. And so the fact that you're walking away is because you're scared, because it's true that you're an alligator. And so yeah, if you stop and go back and argue with the brain, yeah, that's all it was looking for. You gotta have that focus on what do you actually want to be doing in life. It doesn't matter what the brain throws up. Surabjot said, I know that meditation and exercise on its own is not a treatment to OCD and other personality disorders, but do you think it helps to reduce the intensity of the symptoms? So where I would say it was really useful, and so I came about it in reverse, but you could do it the other way around. So for me, I had a lot of compulsions around exercise. Learning how to cut out, like getting over mental illness, enabled me to exercise. Because in the past, yeah, if I started to have some uncomfortable feeling or a fear, while I was exercising, like I would stop. Like I had no measure of how to kind of have feelings while exercising and make that okay. And so learning that, oh, okay, these uncomfortable experiences, they can be there and I can do things I value was actually really helpful for learning how to exercise well. Be like, oh, like I can have that feeling and I don't have to stop. Or, I can do that exercise and it can be difficult. It doesn't mean I'm gonna get injured or it doesn't mean I'm bad at it. It's just, it is difficult and that's okay. But likewise, I find if people do have an exercise practice or they like a sport in their life, that's a great way to learn skills that you can also apply to other experiences. So there might be some kind of mental discomfort. And so, yeah, I find it's really, like if somebody like plays a sport a lot, I find it's, and then they want to work on OCD, like if they're a client, I find it's really helpful to draw on what they've already learned with the sport often. Like they've often already learned how to have physical discomfort. And now we just take those skills and we apply them to like mental, cognitive, and emotional discomfort. So in that way, I find it's really useful. Now, what you mentioned with meditation, so I find meditation is much more directly, because to meditate, you have to cut out compulsions. Although, yeah, like you could meditate and also be very aware of like, I'm doing all sorts of compulsions right now. But in many ways, meditation is about bringing in a practice that's the opposite of doing compulsions. So there, I would say it's much more directly related. Like if somebody is meditating, they're also going to be practicing skills that they can bring into other areas of their lives. Albatross said, only now, after too many years, I'm starting to realize what I did wrong with my OCD, especially lately, as it became really clear I'm in like a state of shock. Seeing what I did wrong freezes me because I see what I've lost for nothing really. I try to make plans for rebuilding my life, but the shock of the realization stops me every time. Oh, so Albatross, do you have a question about that? Yeah. Yeah, and I see on the topic of exercise, yeah, Bagel brought up like the fact that exercising may produce symptoms of sweating, heart pounding, and red face, excessive thirst. It's true. King Kong. He said, why do I travel so much? Well, it's a good world. So speaking of like our wet space rock is really beautiful. And part of going like nomadic was and is Yeah, just spend more time in nature. Spend more time with our world. So I try to travel very slowly. Like I'm in the place where I am right now for a couple months, and then I'm gonna take a vacation around my birthday, which no one's gonna know when my birthday is, and then I'm going to go to another place that has great trains. Again, I took a train here, and then I'll go to another place, and then I'll stay there for a couple months. It's an opportunity to connect with our community, which is spread out around the world. Yeah, and it's been an opportunity to live simply. Like my life fits in two bags. But yeah, it's an opportunity to explore how we move in the world. Um, how we move in the world in a way that can care for our world and care for community. Yeah, it's also an opportunity to make space for things I like to do, like hiking, like meditation retreats. Yeah, having a place, like needing to take care of it, like like plants and having a home and so on. But yeah, definitely, making space to spend more time, longer periods of time at meditation retreats is something I'd like to be doing more of. Yeah. So yeah, and I mean a lot of my favorite dead people were wandering monks. So I mean, it's a great lifestyle. It's all too easy. I said my first OCD thought was, do I have a crush on my friend's girlfriend? That thought scared me to death because it's wrong. So now I'm scared that I won't be able to fall in love ever again and I'll be lonely. Yeah, is there a reason for sharing that? Uh, and it could help to look at that, like whatever that urge was, like, oh, I've gotta share it. Yeah, what if you didn't have to? Like, what if you don't have to spend any time on it? Because it's no different than the brain saying, like, what if you're an alligator? That's going, oh, like, no, I'm not an alligator. I'm a human, right? That's so wrong. But again, all the brain is looking for is for you to go, that's wrong. I would never do that. It just wants you to have that argument. Muddle, I hope you find something, yeah, you enjoy repeating, that you get to choose. I think that's it too. Choosing to repeat something. Because, yeah, then it just becomes like, yeah, like a hobby that we like to repeat. So muddle. And so on the weight of, is the life straw lighter? I'm trying to think. So there's many different varieties of life straw. So some are super light. Some are like a bag. It's like a kind of thicker, kind of vinyl-y bag, and then the life straw just fits in it. And so like that is super, super light. The old life straw I had though was actually stainless steel. It was a steel thermos, and I can't really remember if it was lighter. I think the Grail is heavier than the Life Straw steel thermos was. I think, but this is just practicing a lot of judgment on memories, and so we know how unreliable those can be. But you can definitely find a lighter Life Straw. Oh, Vadi, you said any travel destination that has stood out in a positive way that you're planning to go again for a longer visit? There are. So I have, I would say, like a special list of special places that I would say in the world are kind of similar, even though they're very different. But one I've thought about lately because, yeah, I really enjoyed it, but also I met people there that are even part of our community. Like I can think of, so in Cusco, Peru. So Peru is one of these. Cusco, Peru is one of these special towns I would definitely go back to again, and is such a wonderful place. And because there's been political turmoil in Peru, a lot of Cusco, like it's not getting the tourists that it normally would. So I've seen one of the things that's amazing about Cusco is the food. Food in Cusco is incredible, and also there's something about the altitude and the water which makes all of the pastry amazing. Like it's really difficult to find bad pastry or pizza, like crust, like anything that has like anything pastry or bread related, like empanada dough, the works, always incredible in Cusco. So very, very delicious. And so I can see that a lot of my favorite like restaurants and coffee shops, and even, I don't know, yeah, I know, actually there's a coffee shop in Cusco where one of our community members, their partner runs it. And yeah, I know these shops and restaurants are really struggling right now because there's like nobody in the city, and I hope they're doing well. So that makes, when I see that, like, oh, I should go back to Cusco right now and just spend all day working from my favorite restaurants and coffee shops, so that like eating their food, so that they keep going. So I hope they're all doing well. I know, because again, yeah, like they've just went through, right, a period of time with the pandemic where there was nobody coming into Cusco, like a lot of, the city does. It's a thriving city on its own, but then tourism brings so much money coming in through Cusco. And then, so yeah, to not have that coming through, it's really, really tough for the restaurants, and the coffee shops and the delicious pastries. And so they were just ramping up again. Like I think this one coffee shop I like, and you can go, I'll go share it on my Instagram profile later, because it's so delicious to eat there, but even just the photos they share are delicious. It's called Circania. They were expanding, they like, the pandemic was letting up, so like, okay, we can open our shop. And then, things were going fine again, so they added in new things like a pizza oven and more food, and then again, they have nobody, they'll have some people, but suddenly there'll be far fewer tourists coming through. So it's tough. So Cusco, if anybody gets a chance to spend a large chunk of time, because I think a lot of tourists just stop through Cusco, like you're just gonna go to Machu Picchu or something on these really short trips, and there is so much to see, and so much to experience. Really fascinating place, and it's super delicious. Cusco. I would accept the sponsorship from Cusco. Just saying. I've noticed a bunch of mental health OCD, particularly OCD channels lately. They've been taking on sponsorships for things I would not see as good on a OCD channel. So I'm going to bring us sponsorships by water and pastry and pants. Actually, genuinely, this shirt I'm wearing, it's by a travel company. They actually did give me an affiliate link. I will promote shirts because we need shirts, and water because we need water, and pastry because we need pastry. Anyway, Alani, you said, I have a question. Oh, first you said it's great to see you. It's good to see you too. I said, I have a question. I noticed that I get really mean through my recovery, and I don't want that. It just seems like I'm so overwhelmed with all the feelings that it's too much for me. Any tips? So one, it's quite common, because we're not controlling something, and brain really, really is going to look for control, and so it's quite often that we'll be mean. Like being mean is a type of control. Like, you shouldn't do that, that's stupid, that's wrong, right? We're being certainty, we're trying to control something. So one, giving it a hug, right? Like, hey, like I get why I'm doing this. But then also using that awareness. So yeah, something I noticed too, it really helped me to explore, okay, I know I'm gonna feel this urge to like be mean or judge or criticize or control. I know it's gonna come up. It's fine that it's coming up, but what do I want to do instead? And how do I start to make space for it, but also see like, oh, okay, maybe right now I don't have to say anything. Or maybe right now I'm just gonna go for a walk because I know if I stay here, I just don't have that capacity right now. And it's totally okay to notice that. It's like physical fitness. Like when we're building up capacity, like in strength, we don't have to pretend like we have some capacity that's not there yet. It's useful to notice it, be like, wow, I can't do another exercise. I'm gonna go do something else. I'm gonna go relax. Albatross said, how do I move past the shock? I'm not sure. Maybe you asked another question, Albatross, but I'm not sure what shock you're referring to. Ooh, Thomas. Thomas, what is, you asked, does exercise and losing weight help with intrusive thoughts? If so, how? Right away, the losing weight would send up so many red flags for me. I'd have a lot of questions about why you'd even think that or get on to that idea. I'd say one thing that's really helpful if you're going on an adventure. Well, so also it's not helpful to have a goal of losing intrusive thoughts either. But yeah, for taking care of your mental health, one thing that's really useful is to like ourselves and to like where we're at. Even if, yeah, we're gonna hop into exercise because we're like, all right, like I need to get exercising. My doctor told me to exercise, something like that. It helps so much to make it about something you're adding to your life. When we get into subtracting, we get into all sorts of, that's what brings up the compulsions. In so many ways, our intrusive thoughts are often about, oh, I've got to subtract this thing. Oh no, what if this thing's happened? I must subtract it. Cue another round of guess Mark's zodiac sign. Obviously a Taurus or a shocked Pikachu. I would like to have my zodiac sign be shocked Pikachu. Oh, Susan, thank you so much. I'm glad my videos have been useful. Thanks for joining us from Scotland. Yeah, Albatross. Erica asked a great question there. What would you like to do once you get past the shock? And so you can do that now. Nicole, hey, have a great day, night, and afternoon to you as well. Everyone, we'll wrap up here shortly. We're almost at 2 hours. That's a good amount of time for us to get together. Water, it's delicious, and it didn't come out of a plastic bottle. Moskman said, I'm in a new relationship, and my OCD has been doing everything to destroy it before it really starts. How do I accept doubts and fears to just enjoy this? Yeah, so sometimes it won't be enjoyable, right? Because the brain's doing the thing it does, and so that's okay. When anybody's getting into a relationship or anybody's already in a relationship, I find it really helpful to identify a set of relationship values and then to identify those actions we're gonna do to take care of the relationship. And then just practicing doing them. Consistently practicing those actions while the brain throws up all those doubts and that kind of stuff. Recognizing, hey brain, I get it. You wanna control this. There's another person involved. We don't know what they're thinking. We don't control them. I understand that. But look, here are the actions we're gonna do to take care of this relationship. I'm doing them. I don't control all that other stuff you're throwing up. SW said, do you think it helps the OCD brain to have projects? I think, like you could, like even setting aside like OCD brain, I think we like being ourselves. Like we like doing the things we want to do. So yeah, you may see that as projects. But likewise, some people get too hooked on projects, right? They've always got to be doing something. And then the brain's like, okay, I'll always be thinking of things for you to do. And so then it's like just throwing up intrusive thoughts to give you something to do. So it's like, you need a project. So yeah, the doing things that we want to do in life, useful. It's also really useful to learn how to not do stuff. Because if you always need a problem to fix, the brain will give you problems to fix. Hey, Sonic. Hey, so checking if anybody has had something similar, it's always going to be a reassurance compulsion. Because really, it wouldn't, if I said yes or no, it wouldn't change the things that you want to give your time and energy to. So yeah, I mean, do you want to give your time and energy to things other than what you mentioned? Yeah, here's something Kelly mentioned on exercise. Said it can be useful to consider what you want to get out of exercise. Exercise will not stop your brain plonking out thoughts, nothing will, but it can bring a lot of other great things to life. Yeah. SW said it's hard not to notice you like food. Thank you. I'm glad somebody noticed. I have issues with food and binging and have weight issues also. I feel like I have a long list of issues and it's exhausting. Oh no. The so maybe I'll say this. So I used to I used to have binge eating compulsions. It was really useful to explore how to have food in the house and not eat it instantly. Because if I had any kind of snacks or anything like that, I would tell myself I was getting it for something else, but then I would just get it home and just immediately eat it all. And so yeah, it was a great, and same with things like alcohol. It just I would just drink it all if it was in the house. And so yeah, it was really useful to learn how to have any kind of food in the house, and I didn't have to eat it or have any kind of alcohol, and I could just save it or have it there for guests and things like that. It's exploring food and seeing it, and that learning how to cut out compulsions doesn't have to mean restricting stuff or having seeing food as bad. We can really celebrate food and eat mindfully and enjoy, and it's a really wonderful experience. Oh, Kelly, I did not know this. This is an interesting question. It said, I'm now sponsored by a smart home app, which allows you to remotely check taps, locks, and switches while on the go. Is this not a good sponsorship idea? That's interesting. I have not seen that. I didn't know you were sponsored by that. That's it, or that was even a thing. Well, yeah. What do you think? How do you find it useful to talk about it? Yeah, I'd be curious about that. Well, Muddle, you're off to laundry. Enjoy doing the laundry. Oh, Sonic to Metro. No, I was just curious. No, the brain loves that. SW, enjoyed taking your dog for a walk. Thank you for the donuts. Oh, okay. Oh, Kelly. Oh, I just read you said you're not, you're not sponsored by the home checking app. I'm right. I thought that was really interesting. That makes sense. I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if that was a company was trying to get people to promote that. I was thinking because thinking I was thinking as I was reading your message, I was waiting for a line where I thought you were going to say something like, and there's a special button you can press to burn your house down. But then there wasn't a line like that. So then I thought, I wonder how you are interacting with this. I'm sure it will be a very lucrative sponsorship. Yeah. Oh wow, Erica, what you just thought of? Yeah, Kelly. I didn't lose faith in you. I knew you'd be okay. Erica, what you just came up with, Erica, like that's coming. It must be. Erica just said that app should charge people every time they check. People would pay for it. Guarantee. Duha, yeah, you said, have you heard of staring OCD? And if so, do you have any advice? Yeah, we were actually just talking about that earlier. Um, yeah, it's about identifying the action you want to be doing, that you want to be giving your time and energy to before you step into a situation. And then when you feel that urge to look, uh, choosing to like give your attention to what you identified in advance, or if you run into the kind of variety of compulsions, questioning if you've been staring, or like, yeah, you're staring and then you're like, oh no, I shouldn't be staring. Again, it's okay. Not getting caught up in trying to fix that. What's the thing you actually want to give your attention to? And then taking your attention there. Okay, SW knew it was a joke. Kelly, it was great because it was a brilliant. It was like it was a brilliant joke because it was like it's a thing I haven't seen a sponsorship for yet, but you know it's coming. You know we're going to see it. It's definitely coming, for sure. And with that, we've reached 2 hours of sitting here in the lobby, exploring brains. So yeah, why don't we wrap things up there? I will go on Instagram after and share that the cafe I mentioned in Cusco. Please like their pastry photos. They will, and their pizzas. They have a pizza oven now. And if you're wondering why Cusco would have pizza ovens, and you may not be wondering this, but I find it's an important thing to consider because you'd think like, oh, like mountain city, you know, capital of the Incas, the Incan Empire. Why is it full of pizza ovens? Yeah, so it has something to do with they make really good pizza there. Like, yeah, typically, you know, when you're traveling, you might think, okay, well, I've got to eat local food or something like that. But pizza is very much, it's good. Pizza in Cusco is good. Like, you can count it as local food, and so lots of and they're very serious about it. Like, it's all wood burning, like purpose-built pizza ovens. Really, really good. So with that, speaking of loving food and loving our brains, even when they throw up thoughts and feelings, let us go forth and embrace them. All right, everybody, have a great start to the week. Enjoy letting things be easy. Thank you for stopping by. Thank you for sharing all the questions and support to each other. Thank you so much to everybody that donated. I really appreciate the generous support. All right, everyone. Until next time.